What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Before I get started on the video, just want to let everybody know I'm going to be live tonight. A lot of you guys asked me if I could do the live stream later. Maybe I'll do this live stream later from within the season when I do my weekly picks. I just think it's fun to go over all the matchups, being that the NFL season is set to kick off tomorrow, in which I'll be live streaming the game as well, Thursday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully I get to see some of you guys there for that. But tonight we'll kind of hang out, we'll chill, we'll talk about the week one matchups around the league, we'll talk about some of the point spreads, my thoughts on some of the matchups, and of course, you know we're always going to sprinkle in New York Giants football as well. But in this video, I wanted to go over some of the current events for the New York Giants that have come out today for our love football team. Some of it being Sterling Shepard. News came out today that the New York Giants backloaded the contract for Sterling Shepard. They reconstructed it to shore up some more cap space, potentially to make an addition from within season. Maybe the New York Giants want to make a trade within season. They want to be able to have the cap flexibility in order to do so. So they backloaded some of Shepard's contract. I'll talk about why that was a bit of a surprise for a lot of New York Giants fans in this video. We're also going to touch on the big story of the day with Kadarius Toney being set to come back for the New York Giants. I kind of want to talk about the impact he's going to have on this offense. Judge went as far to say that he thinks he could have a big impact week one against the Denver Broncos. And I think Kadarius Toney could be an X factor in this football game. When you think about the strength of this defense, they're strong at the cornerback position. The New York Giants need to get creative and they need to find ways to create big plays. Well, Toney is probably the most versatile player on this offense outside of potentially Saquon Barkley, and both of those guys are a threat to take it to the house at any point in time. But I'll talk further about that in this video and how much that was lacking last season and how additions like Kenny Golladay, additions like Saquon Barkley, and of course additions like Kadarius Toney could really add that element to this offense this year. And I'm going to touch on some news that came out about Bradley Chubb. We'll also talk about some further injury news as well. Take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of game playing right now between the New York Giants and the Denver Broncos. But, and again, you never root for injuries, but you always take an advantage when you could get it. Period. End of story. If it helps us, get us a win, Bradley Chubb being limited or potentially not playing is a huge load off the shoulders of Nate Solder or Andrew Thomas, whoever's going to be responsible for blocking him on Sunday. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But we'll jump into all the notes and the quotes. First thing coming out from Tom Rock. The head coach says he expects Saquon Barkley to play on Sunday. The head coach of the Broncos, that is, Vic Fangio, says the Broncos expect to see Barkley in the backfield. We're under the assumption he will play, and they should be, to be honest with you. I think we've all expected Barkley to be playing for about at least 3 weeks to a month now from some of the reports we've seen, some of the videos that we've seen coming out. So the Denver Broncos will be prepared for a full allotment of touches for Saquon Barkley week one. We'll see if that's the case, but it sounds more and more likely that Barkley will be suiting up week number one. This then coming out from Art Stapleton. Well, he didn't tweet it, but he retweeted it, and that's how I saw it. And there was a number of other Denver beat reporters that reported this as well. This coming out from Fangio. And we all know going into this game, a huge storyline and something we're really worried about is the two edge rushers for the Denver Broncos, that being Von Miller, that being Bradley Chubb. And expect the New York Giants to have max protection, expect them to use the fullback, expect them to use the two tight end sets to really make sure that Daniel Jones has the time necessary to be able to throw the football and establish the run. But this coming out, I think it's from Mike Kliss. Fangio, Bradley Chubb's ankle still bothering him some. Work on the side, either be limited or did not participate. It's been slow to come around. That coming out from Vic Fangio, the head coach for the Denver Broncos. And I'm sure we'll get more and more clarity on this story as the season gets underway. My guess is he'll play, but even if he does, it's possible that he's limited and maybe he's not 100% himself, but we'll have to wait and see what the lineups look like on Sunday going into that game for the 4:25 kickoff. But I guess a little bit of good news from a New York Giants fans' perspective. Again, you never root for injuries, but obviously that would give us a much better opportunity to win this football game. Next thing coming up here is coming out from Dan Duggan talking about Evan Engram, who I think we all expect at this point not to play. Tight end Evan Engram on the side as expected. Cornerback Adoree Jackson and Caden Smith participated in the portion of practice open to the media after working on the side Monday. Caden Smith, it sounded minor. The media got there a little bit of time the other day, and Caden Smith did not participate. Today he was out there. Expect Smith to be shooting up. Expect Adoree Jackson to be shooting up. And expect Evan Engram to miss time. Special teamer Nate Ebner participating after the signing yesterday. The Giants did bring in Nate Ebner. Didn't make a video on that, but they did bring in Nate Ebner, and they assigned C.J. Board to the practice squad, which to me is kind of just bringing in one special teamer for another. That's why Board was on the team. But as of now, the New York Giants only have 5 wide receivers on the 53-man roster going into week 1. This then coming out from Field Yates regarding Sterling Shepard, and I want to talk more and more in further detail about this. The Giants converted the $5.985 million of wide receiver Sterling Shepard's base salary into a signing bonus, creating $3.99 million in cap space. Sterling's cap charges go up by $2 million in 2022 and 2023, while the New York Giants get the 2021 space. So essentially, the New York Giants created $4 million in cap space this year, and they added $2 million to each of the following years. They did the same thing yesterday when they did it with Logan Ryan. And to me, as far as this year goes, they may be, creating some cap space in under the scenario where they may want to make a midseason addition or an in-season addition that they feel could put them over the top and make them true contenders from within this division. But what it means for Sterling Shepard and what it means for Logan Ryan, these are further commitments for these players. Yes, could they still theoretically cut Sterling Shepard at the end of the year? Sure, but the fact that it would cost them $2 more million, they could have done this with several other players on the roster. It leads me to believe that Sterling Shepard, a player that a lot of us didn't think was going to be in the long-term plans when you looked at the cap situation next year, will be, as long as he remains healthy, and hopefully he does, will be with the New York Giants in 2022. The way it stood before this, they were going to save about $8 million had they cut him, and they were really strapped for cash. That will no longer be the case, and like I said, they could have done this with a number of players. The fact they did it with Shepard leads me to believe, even though they drafted Toney, that he will be back with the team. And as a Giants fan, I love it. I'm excited. I love Sterling Shepard. He's one of my favorite players on the team, and he's a guy that's really been here during the darkest times. Yes, he made the playoffs in his rookie season, but since then, it's been downright horrible to no fault of his own. He's had some problems, obviously, with the concussions, but when Shepard's out on the football field, he's a damn good wide receiver. He's an all-around player, a very good blocker, a hard-nosed football player. He could play in the slot. He could play on the outside. I think he's best suited for the slot. And we'll see next year, if he is back with the New York Giants, how they figure out how they're going to utilize him and Kadarius Toney. Toney's definitely a jack of all trades wide receiver, so it might be a bit of a challenge to, implement them into the offense more so next year, but we'll have to wait and see how they utilize the Jason Garrett offense. But regardless, I'm really happy to see that Sterling Shepard will be back with the New York Giants next year. He's one of my favorite players on the team, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited about that as well. So now you can feel safe to buy that new jersey. Of course, he changed his number this year from 87 to number 3. This then coming out from Zach Rosenblatt. Joe Judge thinks it's realistic for Kadarius Toney to have a significant role against the Broncos based on how he looks in practice today. And again, it could be gameplay between coaches. He wants to keep him guessing. Kadarius Toney is a wild card in this game if he does play, because nobody has any film on this guy at the NFL level. Nobody knows how the New York Giants are going to utilize him in their offense. I don't know. You don't know. He's definitely a guy that could do a variety of things. You could line him up in the backfield. You could do wildcat. You could do jet sweeps. You could put him in the slot. You could put him in the outside. He's basically a running back, and he could, he creates big plays when he gets the football in his hands. And I think that's got to be the key for Toney in this game if he is going to get a full role. Get him out in space. I don't care if he gets 2 or 3 catches, bubble screens. Give him an opportunity to make people miss, and he has the ability to take it to the house, something that is desperately needed in this New York Giants offense. And I'm going to speak on just how desperate that is. Last year, with Saquon Barkley out of the lineup, the New York Giants had 5 plays of 40-plus yards or more in their 16 contests. 5 plays. 1 came on the throw to Darius Slayton. 2 came off the legs of Daniel Jones. That was the only 3 teams had less 40-yard plays. And I think the low was 3. To put that in context, in 2018, Saquon Barkley by himself had 9 40-plus yard plays, nearly double of the team's output last year. Having Barkley back in this offense is going to really add to that number, and the fact that Kadarius Toney is here as well. You also factor in Kenny Golladay, who in his last full season had 3 40-plus yard plays and 19 20-plus yard plays. And we all know that Jason Garrett, definitely the scheme has something to do with it, but he didn't have the weapons to play with last year, and I do think Joe Judge and some of the players that they brought in, namely Russ Callaway, are going to have their imprints on this offense, and I expect with the offseason additions they've made, when you look at Toney, that's what he's about. He's a home run threat. When you look at Golladay, that's what he's about. John Ross, even, who's been banged up. It's a clear sign to me that the New York Giants are going to look to stretch the field. Even Jason Garrett has come out and talked about that this year, and that is what players like Barkley and Toney could bring to this offense. And in this game specifically, you need to get creative against a defense like the Denver Broncos. They are going to lock us down on the outside. You're talking about one of the best secondaries in football. Toney's the type of guy that you could utilize him in so many different ways that you may be able to break a big 50, 60-yard touchdown. Also, of course, he could be a big contributor on special teams. To take this a step further, when the NFL, we all know, is a big play league nowadays. And you look at the teams that have the most big plays outside of the Texans, who are horrific, and that goes back to Deshaun Watson. But when you look at the 20-plus yard plays last year, which the Giants only had 36, which was the second worst total in the NFL last year, look at the majority of the teams at the top of this list. The Texans obviously number one with 70 20-plus yard plays, but then you got the Chiefs with 69, the Buccaneers with 67. Those were your two teams in the Super Bowl. The Buffalo Bills, who narrowly missed the Super Bowl, with 66 at 2, 3, and 4. You need big plays in this league to be able to score quickly. It's nice to have an offense that could go down the field methodically and wear out a defense, and there's going to be times, this game specifically, where you're going to need that, but you also need to be able to hit that big explosive play, and that was something certainly that was missing in the New York Giants offense last year. Some of that having to do with the new scheme, and a lot of it having to do with that we didn't have the personnel. With Barkley out of the lineup, you didn't have a guy like Golladay, you didn't have a guy like Kadarius Toney. That is what those players will bring to this offense. And if we're going to beat the Broncos, you're going to need big plays. The Denver Broncos over the last 2 years are the only team in the history of football that have been number one in red zone defense back-to-back seasons since they've been tracking that stat. If we're going to score on them in terms of points, 6 points, touchdowns, it's more than likely going to come from outside of 20 yards. And guys like Toney and Barkley could certainly bring that to the table. But I'm super excited to see the whole band back together. We'll see how this offense looks week number 1 in just 4 short days as the New York Giants take on the Denver Broncos. Looks like Toney's going to be good to go. Looks like Barkley's going to be good to go. Bradley Chubb still questionable. And Sterling Shepard, look for him to be a New York Giant in 2022. Hopefully I see some of you guys tonight. We'll talk some broad NFL. Of course, we'll talk some Giants. And we'll just have a good time. Probably live at about 8 or 8:30. As always, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.